I was aware that Cynthia was gonna, that she was gonna take that first pill, and I had agreed to be with her when she took the second pill.
So when I started having second thoughts was when I actually took it. So,
I see.
A society that's built its foundation on the availability of contraception must have a second plan when that contraception fails, and that plan B is abortion.
Literally the first thing he said to me was, I didn't know I was a miracle.
Oh.
You're sick.
Are you okay, man?
Yeah, I'm alright.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. J Show. We're here to discuss the Abortion Pill Reversal book, edited by Dr. George Delgado. We have Dr. George Delgado with us, Nurse Debbie Bradel with us, and a married couple who actually used the abortion pill reversal protocol back in the day, Cynthia and Jyale. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. J Show. Oh, okay, so let's start with Dr. Delgado. Dr. George Delgado, you're considered the father of the abortion pill reversal protocol. Can you just explain to us what it is exactly?
Sure. Well, before we talk about what abortion pill reversal is, it's important to know what mifepristone, the abortion pill, is. And before we know that, we need to know about what progesterone is. Progesterone, as the name implies, progestational steroid kinone, is absolutely essential for normal pregnancy. Mifepristone, the abortion pill, causes an abortion by blocking progesterone receptors. And it does that by linking onto the receptor but not activating. Think about a key that goes into a lock and turns the lock and the door opens. That's a good thing that a hormone does, such as progesterone. Well, mifepristone is the false key. All of us have had this frustrating experience of putting a key into a lock where it fit into the lock, but the lock didn't turn and the door didn't open. That's what mifepristone does. It blocks that receptor. The door does not open. So that leads to the dissolution of what I call the super glue of the pregnancy that keeps the placenta well adhered to the wall of the uterus. When the mifepristone blocks the effects of the progesterone, the placenta separates and the preborn baby dies. So our theory behind abortion pill reversal is to give supplemental progesterone so that there are more of the good guy keys lined up in front of that lock, so that when that mifepristone, the false key, comes out of the lock, there's a good guy key, progesterone, ready to go into that lock to turn it and to open the door so that the placenta stays well adhered. And we give the supplemental progesterone for a period of time, at least 2 weeks, until the mifepristone washes out of the system. So that, in a nutshell, is what abortion pill reversal is. It's giving supplemental progesterone to outcompete mifepristone, the abortion pill.
Okay, but it's my understanding that the abortion pill itself is really two pills generally. Is that correct? So how do the two pills come into it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The first pill is the one I just described, the mifepristone,
Okay.
the false key that blocks progesterone. And then 24 to 48 hours later, a woman takes the second drug called misoprostol. Misoprostol causes contractions in order to expel the remains of the preborn baby. Abortion
I
pill
see.
reversal is generally between the two medicines, what we call the window of opportunity, where the woman has taken the first drug, mifepristone, has changed her mind, and then she goes through the abortion pill reversal process if she desires.
I see. So there's two stages to the chemical abortion. Sometimes it's called a medical abortion or a chemical abortion. And it's my understanding, George, maybe you know this already, or I don't know if we even know this for sure, but a much larger percentages of abortions today are done medically without any surgical procedures at all. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely right. Yeah, the estimates now are that these days in 2026 in the United States, about 70% of all abortions are chemical abortions or medical abortions.
I see. And so the woman doesn't have to be in a clinic. The whole pro-life protocol of trying to talk with people on their way in, that's all changed. That can be very different.
Wild west of the abortion landscape, because now during the Biden administration, where the restrictions on mifepristone were lessened, and with the non-enforcement of the shipping of abortion pills across state lines, you have telehealth abortions, which now are accounting for about 27% of all abortions. And you also have mail abortions, mail order abortions, where someone just goes on. And after I went on a few months ago, and after 6 clicks, they were asking for my credit card information so that I could buy the abortion pills. So you can see it's very unregulated, very unsafe for women, and numbers
Right.
that we are having trouble tracking.
Yes, I can see why it would be hard to track what all's going on when it's that kind of, the Amazon version of abortion provision. Dr. Delgado, was there a particular incident that inspired you to get involved in creating this kind of protocol?
Well, it really was. And this really happened because there were 2 women thousands of miles apart at different times who asked Dr. Matthew Harrison and myself if we would help them reverse their chemical abortions. So all of this really started because of 2 women's cry for help. And both Dr. Harrison and I came to their assistance. We both had very similar ideas. I was in my office in San Diego, and I got a call from Terry Palmquist, who is a sidewalk counselor in Bakersfield, California, who also carries a cell phone. And she got a call from a woman in El Paso, Texas, Erin Medina. Her story is in part 2 of my book, Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice. And Erin had taken the mifepristone, changed her mind, reached out to Terry. Terry reached out to me. I said, Terry, I don't know. I've never heard of this ever happening before, but let me give it some thought. And the Holy Spirit put 2 and 2 together in my mind because I had a great knowledge of progesterone use in early pregnancy for women with low progesterone levels who have what we call threatened miscarriages. I had treated them very successfully with progesterone. But I also had kind of an inordinate interest in mifepristone from even before the time it was approved, when it was known as RU46. So I knew exactly how it worked by blocking progesterone receptors. So in my mind, I reasoned, well, these women may have normal progesterone levels, but they're being made ineffective by the mifepristone that's blocking them. So perhaps I can treat them like the threatened miscarriage patients who have low progesterone levels and give the supplemental progesterone and outcompete. At that point, I came up with a protocol on the fly. Then I found a doctor in El Paso, Texas, where Erin was, Dr. Jonalyn Bellacura. She agreed to use my protocol and to go ahead and treat her. And then weeks later, I got a call that the baby was still alive. And then as went on, as they say, the rest is history.
Dr. Delgado, this is really interesting. And the fact that you mentioned the women who are at risk for miscarriage, I think that will be of interest to a lot of our people to know that this medication you're using is a well-studied, well-understood medication. It's not like you invented something in your lab or something. You're taking a well-studied, well-approved, successful medication and giving it a different application. So that's, I think, important for people to know. But, we have on the call a couple who actually use the abortion pill reversal protocol. So I'd like to call on Cynthia and Jyale for a moment to ask you a few questions. Tell us a little bit about, well, I don't know who wants to go first, but tell us a little bit about your story. What made you reach out to somebody for help in this area?
So when I was 19, I found out that I was pregnant, and I knew at the time I wasn't ready to have a baby. And my only options at the time in my head were to have an abortion. And I heard about the abortion pill, but I think I would never have considered like a surgical abortion. But the abortion pill just sounded like something that was really easy to do and kind of, I guess, didn't really seem so bad. So I was like, I honestly didn't give it much thought. I just thought, this is what I need to do. I can't have a baby right now. And so I went ahead and I got the pills. After I took the first pill, I was just not feeling right about the decision and just a little bit uneasy. Like, I think it became real at that time. And I remember I spoke to my mother about it, and she had given me the money originally to get the pills because I didn't have enough money for it. And she was feeling also a lot of regret about it. So she ended up going to confession with the priest the next morning and kind of just told the priest, what happened, that she was feeling really bad and just a lot of regret. And the priest knew of, I think, a doctor that worked with Dr. Delgado, and offered to come over and speak with me and kind of said like maybe there's still something that can be done. So then I agreed, and the priest came over to my house and kind of just talked to me about what happened, what I did, how I was feeling. And then he reached out to his contact at Dr. Delgado's office, and then we got in contact with him. And that's how kind of we started, and we found out about that. It was even an option to go back.
And so I want to stop right now and let the audience know the end of the story. The end of the story is this nice man next to you is involved in this, and we're going to hear from Jyale in a moment. But the child, how old is this child now?
He is 15.
15?
Yeah,
15. Okay, so the baby's fine, everybody.
Yes.
Just to cut to the chase, the baby is fine. Jyale, tell us what was going through your mind at this point.
I was terrified. I was actually working with my dad. I was aware that Cynthia was gonna, that she was gonna take that first pill, and I had agreed to be with her when she took the second pill. I was with the mindset that, hey, it's your body, and who am I to tell you, what you can do and what you can't. Also I felt very cowardice, where I was kind of trying to dump the responsibility on her, where I can keep my hands clean, like, hey, it was her choice and not mine. And but it's not the case, right? So anyways, after working with my dad, I was late to be there with her. And when I got there, she had told me that she was already talking to Dr. Delgado, that she told me the story about her mom going to confession and the priest referring her to Dr. Delgado. And at that time, I was like, oh no, like, we have to make this whole decision again. And I say we because Cynthia was, she was terrified, and she was looking to me for answers. And I didn't want to give any answers. I wanted to let her choose what to do, like I said, to keep my hands clean. And but as Dr. Delgado was explaining to me, that things are going to be okay, one of the biggest things I thought in my mind was that, what if this kid is going to have a missing arm, or, some kind of deformity because of the mifepristone. That was my biggest fear. Like, I wouldn't be able to look at this kid knowing that, I damaged him. I didn't want to. Well, Dr. Delgado was telling me about the abortion reversal, explaining to me on the phone, but I was very scared that this, maybe I did something to this kid, that, he wouldn't have an arm, or, he would have some kind of deformality with taking the first pill. And, I wouldn't be able to look at this kid knowing that I injured him or her. Funny thing, I always knew it was going to be a boy for whatever reason. But I didn't want to injure him, and be able to, like, I wouldn't be able to look at him every single day knowing that I hurt him. And but Dr. Delgado was, very persistent, and he explained to us that it was safe, that none of that was going to happen. All it would do was just, stop the abortion. And we actually hung up on him, and it was a tough decision. And in that time, we were talking to each other and seeing what our options are, and what are we going to do now that we have to face this decision all over again. And I really believe that God spoke to me in that moment, telling me to, keep this baby. And even though I didn't hear any voice, I knew he was talking to me. And I just remember in my mind saying, okay, God, but you're going to help me. And you're going to help me provide for this kid no matter what. And although I didn't hear a voice, I heard, she's like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, no problem. And so I told Cynthia, well, at the time before we had hung up, Dr. Delgado told us to just come get a free ultrasound. Let's just see if there's even a heartbeat. And I told Cynthia, I said, you know what? There's too much fight for this baby. Let's just go get a free heart. Let's just go get this, free ultrasound to see if there's a heartbeat. But mark my words, there's going to be a heartbeat and we're going to have a baby. And
That's
so
so
yeah,
cool. Jyale, that is so cool. So Cynthia was 19. How old were you at the time?
I was 19. Cynthia's 2 months older than me.
Wow, wow. So you guys have been together all this time.
Yes.
And do you have other children besides this first one?
Yeah.
Yes, we have 2 other children.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you brought up the safety concern, and so I want to return back to Dr. Delgado and ask, Dr. Delgado, what are some of the safety concerns or the issues that have been raised about the safety of the abortion pill reversal protocol?
Yeah, unfortunately, the people who oppose APR have been spreading lies and misinformation. We've had several anecdotes where women have first called back to the abortion center where they got the pills, and often they're told your baby's sure to have birth defects, and that's one of the claims. However, if you look at both drugs individually, you mentioned about progesterone. It's been used very safely in pregnancy for over 60 years, has an extremely good safety track record. Doctors who perform in vitro fertilization, they routinely put women who are pregnant with IVF on progesterone for the entire first trimester, so they have all the confidence in the world. The FDA has come out and said that progesterone does not cause birth defects. So we know progesterone is very safe. Then what about mifepristone? Well, fortunately, one of our biggest antagonists, ACOG, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which is part of what I call in my book the medical abortion complex, has come out on 3 occasions with practice bulletins that have said that mifepristone does not cause birth defects. So they are of the opinion that it does not cause birth defects. And when you look at different research studies they've done in the past, no evidence of birth defects. And our 2 big studies, one looking at over 500 women, one looking at over 700 women, where we were able to follow hundreds of women to delivery, shows that there's no increased risk of birth defects when the baby is exposed to first mifepristone, then progesterone through APR. So we're very confident that there's no risk of birth defects. As far as other safety issues, they're just not there. And our big study with over 750 women that's already been accepted for publication will be published in the next issue of the Lineker Quarterly, a peer-reviewed medical journal of the Catholic Medical Association, shows that the risks of significant bleeding are very, very low. No antibiotic use in all of these women, just a couple of hospitalizations, no maternal deaths. So very, very safe. And I think women who choose to reverse their chemical abortions, who want that second chance insurance, can be very confident that it's safe, both for them and for the baby they're carrying.
I want to go back though to the mainstream medical association saying that the abortion pill itself does not cause birth defects. It's good that they're saying that, but that seems a little bit odd that they would be asking that question, because if the babies aren't supposed to make it, I mean, they die, so that's not a birth defect. But how exactly do they study this, Dr. Delgado, if you don't mind my asking? What do they mean when they say it doesn't cause? Because I guess from the perspective of Cynthia and Jyale, that's a question. Gosh, we took this abortion pill. Did that pill hurt the baby? Right, not worried about the progesterone itself, but did that first pill hurt the baby? What is it? Well, what is the evidence that the people on the medical abortion complex offer on the question of birth defects?
Yeah, well, the evidence before we published our studies was there's always been a percentage of times where the abortion pill doesn't, quote, work and doesn't kill the baby. And the baby's
I see.
So there's a percentage of these
Okay.
women who choose to carry their babies to term, and so those are the ones they've studied.
I see. Okay, and so even under those circumstances, that's the evidence that you have is based on that. Do you know?
In addition
If
to
you
our
don't mind, yes. Okay, tell us briefly what you mean by the medical abortion complex. And it's appalling to me that did this happen to you guys? Did you call the clinic where you got the pills and said we're thinking about doing this? Did you have that experience?
Yes. So I called actually I called a few different Planned Parenthoods. I guess looking to see if one of them gave me a reassuring answer. And they all told me that like I had to take the second pill, and basically said that if I didn't, that my baby would have like, severe deformations or something wrong and probably wouldn't survive anyways. They told me that Dr. Delgado, like, they don't know what he's talking about, but that's not true. And kind of said, like, why are you letting somebody that's just filling your head with nonsense? So yeah, that was one of my also biggest fears, because I was being told that, there's there's going to be something wrong with the baby and you need to take the second
Wow.
pill. It's too late. And that's why I was kind of going back and forth. And Dr. Delgado never, he told us, what the research shows and how he's, had used it before. There's doctors that had used that progesterone before. So, but it wasn't, I guess, reassured. So that was just something that we kind of had to just trust that everything was going to be okay. And so that was, I think, an important thing to just know that, they're telling me all these things and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But I really, for some reason, even though I didn't know Dr. Delgado, I really trusted him, and he just seemed like somebody that
Yes.
was looking out for me.
You know what? I just find it so appalling that they would tell you that over the phone, that somebody on the phone told you that your child would have birth defects if they survived the abortion pill, that they would end up having birth defects, because there's no evidence for it, and it's none of their business to be talking to you like that anyway. I mean, I just the things these people get away with, it drives me crazy. Dr. Delgado, explain to us about the medical abortion complex. What is that? Who's all involved in this kind of interlocking network of people keeping this type of thing going?
Right. So those who are involved at the heart of it, of course, is Planned Parenthood. That abortion is still their cash cow, and they're very heavily invested in it. But also involved are American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which on its own website declares itself as an abortion advocacy organization now. And that happened with never them having polled their doctor members. They never asked if we should be supporting abortion or not. Instead, it was a top-down infiltration of their leadership that happened to them, as well as happened to the American Medical Association, which now is part of what I call the medical abortion complex. The ACLU is also part of it. And somewhat surprisingly, but maybe not, the FDA and the CDC are also participants in this by really, mifepristone was approved in the U.S., breaking several of the rules of the FDA. And I have that in my book, also in the chapter called David and Goliath, where I describe all this. And in part one of the book, also, I talk about how it was approved really illegally. And so, and you have many people that are kind of embedded in these government bureaucracies who are extremely pro-abortion, who have huge biases against life, and who approve papers and studies that are biased and that
Yes.
support abortion and other related issues. So you have all of that stacked as Goliath against David, which was abortion pill reversal. And so that's it's been an epic battle, and
Yes.
talk about it in that chapter, David and Goliath, and I think people will find it very interesting.
And I want to just comment on one aspect of this, Dr. Delgado, because my background, as you know, is in economics. I'm Dr. Morse, but I can't do anything useful like deliver a baby. Okay, I mean, I'm the wrong kind of doctor for that. But one thing we know in economics is that people respond to incentives in a systematic way. That's kind of all we have in econ. But what has happened over time is that as abortion and contraception have become normalized, the professions don't explicitly require this, but for all practical purposes, delaying childbearing is the price of entering the professions, right? You have to finish college, you have to finish medical school, you have to finish journalism school, you have to finish law school, you have tons and tons of debt from law school. And so most of those people are getting there not by living chaste lives, but by being full participants in the abortion contraception lifestyle, you could say. And I'm not accusing anybody in particular. I'm just saying, on the whole, there's a tendency going to be for people who are successful in professions to be people who cannot imagine that what their life would be like if they hadn't been able to have that abortion or those pills or whatever it was. That they're embedded in a way, they're committed in a way that is beyond the rational evidence. And so I think that accounts for a lot of the bias that we're seeing. What do you think of that, George?
Yeah, I think absolutely right. I always, in my book, I muse on this, and I think that people are so vehemently opposed to abortion pill reversal because they're wedded to the medical abortion complex and what I call big abortion, either economically, because they make a lot of money from it, or ideologically. And many of those are wedded ideologically because they've either participated in abortion or they somehow they see it as this fundamental right. Back to what you just said, that the U.S. Supreme Court's Casey case said that a society that's built its foundation on the availability of contraception must have a second plan when that contraception fails, and that plan B is abortion. And so you're right, it's just been embedded into the fabric of this get ahead while you're young, virtue.
Mentality. Yeah, yes. And the Casey decision is a particularly stark statement of that. They're treating it like it's a constitutional reliance interest that they had to stick with. I want to go back to Cynthia and Jyale, though, because their life turned out to be somewhat, your life took a different path because of the decision that you made when you were 19 years old. It sounds like from what you wrote in this book, and by the way, I want everybody to know that this is the book we're talking about, The Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice. And it's Dr. Delgado is listed as the author, but it includes testimonies from a number of people, including Cynthia and Jyale, which is how I wanted to invite them on and have a chance to tell their story. If I remember correctly from this, and you mentioned the priest, both of you had some kind of spiritual religious counseling or input in these crucial few days when you were making your decisions. Let's start with Jyale. Could you tell us a little bit about what your pastor had to say and how you reacted to it, just so people get a feel for what's out there, for how people in the clergy are approaching these questions with people?
So yeah, I was a Baptist at the time, not Catholic, and I was talking to my pastor about our situation, and he offered us resources, like counseling resources that Cynthia and I were going to, and we were still trying to find a way to kind of justify getting an abortion, at least for our moral compass. We In the back of our minds, we both knew it was wrong, but we were still looking for some outlet. We had other influences from, family members and friends, telling us that we're going to ruin our lives, and kind of like what you said earlier about our career, and that we're not going to be able to make it. And so we were looking for just kind of an approval from, I guess, somebody with a stronger moral compass, and the church didn't give it to us. Even it wasn't Catholic. They were telling us that it was wrong, and they were there to help us, and they were suggesting adoption.
I
And
see.
for us, I guess adoption was never on the table. I think it was kind of more of a embarrassment or kind of a shame to have
Mm-hmm.
somebody else raise your kid. Um, and at least for us, that was kind of my mindset. Like, hey, if it's gonna be me, like I gotta follow through with it. Um, but yeah, they were very helpful. They offered us free counseling, and we're really there, really attentive. And they were very passive, though. They weren't like saying like, no, you must keep the baby, and you must you have to follow this, or they weren't Bible thumping. There was one. We went to a second counselor.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Do you wish they would have been more Bible thumping? I'm not sure. I'm not sure quite what you're telling me here, Jyale.
So we went to another one. At the time, Cynthia and I were fighting quite a bit. Also, we were both
Oh,
under a ton of stress, and
yeah. Oh, sure.
we went to another counselor where he told us just
That was
straight.
after.
Huh?
That was after. I think. Or like the.
No, because he told us
No.
it was wrong. Where
Is
this
this okay? Is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
going to be okay? Cynthia, are you okay with this?
We were confusing our timeline. That's why.
Yeah, I remembered that was after, like, once we decided to keep the baby, because they did
I see.
offer also services after we,
Oh,
decided to keep the baby, and
I see.
just like couples therapy and, just helping us with like our issues that we had before the baby was born.
Yeah,
So
okay,
I
see, I
see.
got that
yeah,
mixed
yeah.
up. But there was one counselor who did tell us directly that it's wrong. Abortion is wrong, and you cannot do it. And
Yeah.
we left there kind of with like with my tail between my legs, but also kind of upset. Like, who's this guy to tell me? Because everybody was kind of nice, but at the same time, I knew he was right. And as
Yeah.
much as I didn't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
believe it, I knew that he was right. And as a scared kid, those were kind of things that just led up to me making that decision. So I would say yeah, but I think it was. I would say yeah that it's nice to hear it just directly. That they weren't beating around the bush, but I would say that the other people that were helping us, even though they were, I guess, softer, they did make me feel validated. They, like my concerns felt real. The emotions that I was going through felt real. And I think that maybe not good cop first and then kind of bad cop, we're just going to just
Right.
tell directly how it was able to help me make my decision.
And Cynthia, how about you? We've heard a little bit from your mom and the priest, and what was all of this like for you?
Yeah, so I, at the time when Jal mentioned that his, pastor was offering counseling, I mean, we just kind of went. I think it was only like one or two sessions that we just went to go talk with them, and I was just, kind of there, and I think in my mind I had already made the decision. I I think whatever they told me, I already knew what I was gonna do, because I just at the time my mom had me when she was young, and that was always a big fear of hers, was that I was gonna have
Yeah.
a kid young, and I saw her struggle, and I really just thought, like, I can't go through this myself, like I don't want this for my life. And so I was very much, I was willing to listen to what they had to say, but at the same time, I had already made my decision, and I was not going to change it.
Your decision to take the pill and to take the
Yeah,
abortion pill. Okay.
yeah. So
And so what? Yeah. So where did the second thoughts come from?
so when I started having second thoughts was when I actually took it. So,
I see.
it just seemed so easy, and it's not a big deal. It kind of just seemed like a morning after pill or something, like where you just take it and your problem is done. That's how
Yeah.
I, in my mind, understood it. And it wasn't until I took the first pill, even when I was at the clinic and they handed it to me, I had it in my hand, and I was just like, all the thoughts started rushing in, and I remember I gave it back, and I like ran out of there because I was just like, what am I doing? And I was crying, I remember, in the parking lot, and I told Jyale that I don't know if I'm making the right decision. And it just became so real to me there.
Yeah.
And, he told me, if you don't want to do it, like, we can leave right now. And I was like, no, I already paid, and I have to just see it through. I already did it. Like, there's no going back. So I walked back in and I took it, but I was definitely where the second thought started was when they handed it to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It
The
became
HR.
real then.
Yeah.
It became real for you in a way that it hadn't been before.
Yeah.
So Dr. Delgado, you have been telling us about the first stories and a little bit about the science and whatnot. How did you get to the point where you, a doctor in San Diego, are helping women all over the place? That can't be. It can't be that you did it by yourself. I mean, who's taken these calls and so on? These worried, scared people calling. Who's doing that?
Well, now we have a very well-developed abortion pill rescue network hotline, and that's now run by Heartbeat International. But the way it started was, really quite organically. Cynthia and Jyale were my first in-person case in San Diego. And then after that, there had been a couple of cases. I started getting phone calls from people around the country who were wondering what I had done, and I was giving them advice. And then we started getting calls from people who knew women who wanted to reverse. And so it became very clear that we needed to organize something a little bit in order to be able to handle these calls and in order to just kind of start an organization. So our first hotline person was one of our Culture of Life Services volunteers, Vita, God rest her soul. And she took the initial calls, but then I knew that I really needed more medical expertise and needed to get better organized. So I called on a trusted friend and colleague, Debbie Bradel, RN, and asked her if she would be our first APR hotline nurse and also to help develop this program. And so she was passionate and very pro-life and very smart. And like I say in the book, she's intrepid, doesn't let anything slow her down, no fear. And so she was the right woman to partner with me to get this off the ground as an organization.
And we just happen to have Nurse Debbie Bradel on the call with us today. And according, you have a chapter in this book where you describe yourself as the first hotline nurse. Just tell us how you got involved and what those opening days were like for you.
Right. Yes. So I'd already been working at Dr. Delgado's office as a crisis pregnancy nurse manager. So helping women to obtain all the resources they needed to keep their baby. And so I'll never forget the day that Dr. Delgado walked into the department where my office was, and he asked me if I would do it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Delgado, but I think I said, of course, right away. And
there was no hesitation.
No. And so it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to put my pro-life passion into practice. And I didn't realize how the future was going to be as far as needing so many more nurses. So that first 6 months, it was just me taking calls, but we only had 24 calls from May to December of 2012. And so that was manageable. I remember having to leave mass here and there and taking a call and getting to know the doctors that Dr. Delgado already knew that were on pro-life lists. And so then after the December 2012, then as the calls became more and more, I recruited Dr. Delgado's wife, beautiful Liz, and she and another nurse, the three of us, took over for a while until about 2018. And I think at that time there were about 100 nurses that were trained, not all working at the same time, but trained and ready. Yeah.
So is this a 24-hour hotline?
So yes. And for a time it was AM to PM, a short pause. Remember that, Dr. Delgado? But now it's 24/7 again. Now that Heartbeat has it, there's a lot more coverage.
So Debbie, tell people about Heartbeat International. I know about it. You know about it. A lot of pro-life people know about it, but a lot of pro-life people don't know about it and need to know about it. So what is Heartbeat International and how do they get involved in this?
Yes, as the name implies, international. They're an umbrella organization that all the little organizations like we were can go to for overarching administration, for classes, some legal assistance, media to help promote our organizations. Anything else, Dr. Delgado, that I missed about that?
Well, they're an international organization with a great deal of institutional depth. And so we knew that abortion pill reversal had become international. It had outgrown our local nonprofit. They were interested in partnering with us. So finally, in 2018, we really handed over the whole program to them, with the exception of the research and the medical protocols. And they've done a great job running with it and have grown it quite beautifully.
And so they're the referral aspect of this whole thing. Is that right?
I wouldn't call it the referral. I mean, now, yes, the calls are managed by the administration of Heartbeat, who oversees the nurses. Yes. But Dr. Delgado is still in charge of the medical protocols and the research.
But you're
I
right.
hear
Yeah,
you.
if a woman goes online and decides she wants to reverse her chemical abortion, then she'll call the hotline number. She'll get the APR hotline nurse at Heartbeat International, who then will ask her questions and determine that yes, she does want to reverse. Then she will refer her to a doctor or clinic in her area, who then will take over the treatment. So it is they serve as a referral source.
That's
So Debbie, when you started off, you and Dr. Delgado were down the hall from each other, so it wasn't that big of a step. But at this point, the nurses are kind of the first face of the abortion pill reversal protocol. Is that fair to say?
absolutely, yes. And so many of the stories talk about how accepting and compassionate and quote unquote nice the nurses were when the woman made that first call. So yes, definitely the nurses are the first face that they encounter. And then what proceeds from there is the nurse is her task is to obtain a doctor's in the same locale as the patient to get her the protocol started, get the progesterone protocol started. So that's the second phase of the whole situation is first the compassion for the patient, and then the wheels have to really start moving to get a hold of a doctor in a timely manner.
Yes, and so help me understand, how long is this window that we're talking about from the time you take the first abortion pill, until the time that there's a reasonable chance, and I don't even know what that is, but you want to act pretty quickly with the progesterone. What's the window of time that we're talking about, Debbie?
72 hours, right, George?
Yeah, we've had success up to 72 hours, and we haven't really studied it past that. So that's the number
I
we
see.
use.
Okay. So you guys need to be on top of it. The nurses, you have to be compassionate. You have to be accepting. You can't, you, it's urgent, but you can't act urgent somehow. I'm not putting this very well. You explain it. You understand what I'm trying to say. You got to come to the point and say, get on with it or not. But you can't push that. You can't act like that because, as Jyale and Cynthia were talking about, some of the pressures that they felt and how uncomfortable that. So there's a kind of a dance that you nurses have to do. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Our dance partner is the Holy Spirit. And so while we are looking at our computers and mapping out where the patient is regarding the closest to the doctor, we're praying, Holy Spirit, please help this to work out according to your will. And there's a story in the book from one of the nurse practitioners who currently works with Dr. Delgado at the clinic, who talks about how she was making every effort to connect the patient with a provider, a practitioner. And the patient was like, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes she was happy about it. Sometimes she was like, I got to go take my baby to the babysitter. And the nurse practitioner was knowing that this patient is losing time, but not trying to pressure her, because it's the woman's choice, right? So we have to be very careful with that, and the Holy Spirit is always helping.
So you bring up an interesting question. Have there been complaints from patients who have accessed the abortion pill reversal network, however you want to call it? Have there been complaints about the nurses? Have there been complaints about the protocol itself? What does that look like for you guys?
Not that I know of, George, right? Do you know of any?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any woman who's regretted going through the abortion pill reversal process, even when they've had failed reversals, which of course unfortunately happens. And I don't recall any complaints about any treatment by our hotline nurses. Hotline nurses are a group of very compassionate, faith-filled, very professional nurses who I have the utmost admiration for them. They're in the trenches. They do a wonderful job. They're selfless, and they just give of their hearts to these women who are looking for a second chance at choice.
But the reason I ask is that in today's environment, with the medical abortion complex being what it is, and with the whole legal apparatus that is stacked against you guys, I would think that if there were any complaints, we would have heard about them. There would be consumer protection calls or, malpractice, and I've never heard of that. And in all the complaints and whining that they do, it's always, well, maybe they're doing, maybe this, maybe that. There's nothing, there's no there. So that's why I asked, are there any official complaints? It sounds like the answer is not really.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add something there, if I may. From the very beginning, and Debbie, I think you can recall this, we really set some very high standards, and we wanted to make sure that all the information we gave was very truthful and unbiased, and that we were very supportive and never coercive. And I think that has been the ethos of it, and has continued with Heartbeat International, which is one of the reasons we chose them. And in fact, Heartbeat International and Real Options Obria Clinic in San Jose were sued by the state of California because of their offering APR with claims that they were harming women and giving false information. And just a couple of days ago, the Heartbeat International legal team, led by the Thomas More Society, filed a petition with the state Supreme Court to have that case dismissed because not one allegation has been substantiated. They can't find any evidence of any woman being misled, harmed, or being lied to. So I think that's pretty good proof.
And not only that, the state of Colorado has had to pay a multi-million-dollar settlement because they had basically enjoined people from talking. They basically were putting restrictions on what you could say and whatnot. And those speech restrictions went away as viewpoint discrimination. And now they've just settled $6.1 million, if I'm not mistaken, to the people. I want to take this opportunity, though, Dr. Delgado, because now that my pulse is racing here, guys, Dr. J's about to go ballistic. And not everybody wants to see Dr. J with smoke coming out of her ears. But and this is not everybody's cup of tea, so we're going to take this offline and come back to it. But Dr. Delgado, I want you to tell me about the stinking Creinin study. This study that supposedly shows that the abortion pill reversal protocol sent people to the ER. Okay, let's do it. Dr. Delgado, tell me all about it. What is this Creinin study? Okay, now back to the main line. That little digression's a lot of fun, and I think the people who go for it are going to really find it very worthwhile. I want to go back to Debbie just for a moment now, because we have mentioned that the nurses are the first line of contact, the first contact really with the abortion pill reversal process and network. Debbie, can you share with us one or two memorable stories of women that you've conversed with over the years?
Oh, yes. Let me just give an overarching thought. The reason that the highlighted stories come to my mind is because, as George has said, reversal gives them hope, even if the baby is lost. And so I have a particular case that I'm still in touch with her and her family. She is expecting her sixth child already, and she was in a situation where she was in nursing school, and the career was everything. And just as Cynthia said, as soon as she took the pill, it was like the darkness just came over her. And what did I do? And so I worked with her. We did not have a success, but she has just given her life to the Lord. And no matter how hard things are, she has so much hope and trust and faith in God. So that was one story. Then there's another.
And so what you said, so wait a minute, you said that she's now having her sixth child. Did she have children before, or is this now all after
the reversal?
I see.
Yes, all after the reversal. She has had a baby almost every year since she got married. So there was probably 3 years between the reversal and the first child. So that was her case. And then there's another case which I'm still in touch with. Her mother was only 14 when she had her. And she was forced by her grandparents, who were her um, legal guardians. She thought her mother was her sister because they grew up together
Oh,
under the grandparents. Yes. And so this case, her mother, as I said, was only 14 years older. And then when my case was only 14, her grandparents forced her to have an abortion. So the grandparents were not really watching everybody very well. And so she ran away from home and um, became a professional escort. And when she reached me in 2013,
what kind of? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What kind of escort are we talking about?
the kind that you advertise yourself and then you accompany
Gotcha.
gentlemen to events and then,
Gotcha.
okay,
Gotcha. Okay.
okay. And then, so then she found me for, let's see, this probably would have been her sixth pregnancy by then, and the reversal was unsuccessful. But it was the first time she'd ever tried to reverse, and she was so moved by what had happened that she now, as a completely transformed person, she is taking care of her mother, who she thought was her sister, who even at 50 something years old has dementia. So she's taking care of her. She's raising her other children at home. And so I just love that story because of the complete transformation of something very drastic that became like a phoenix. She's just
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
beautiful woman now.
So how many abortions did she end up having?
Oh gosh, I want to say four, about four
And then
before she met,
four abortion.
before she called me. Yeah. Then she
Yeah.
did.
And then how many living children does she have
So
now?
now she has two children and, no, three, but one she placed for adoption. And that was
I see.
after the reversal. So she was
I see.
still having little troubles, but um, she's a completely different woman than she was before a reversal.
It sounds like she has some peace in her life.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the vibe I'm getting from Dr. Delgado too, that when the women come and decide to try to do the reversal, even though they don't get the baby, they're more at peace
Mm-hmm.
with what they've done in comparison with the the struggle that Cynthia described the minute she took the pill. I mean, actually, it sounds like even the minute you held the pill in your hands, practically, something happened. Am I describing that correctly, Cynthia?
Yeah, I think the minute they put it in my hand, it all became very real. Another thing when I was there slightly before that, I think kind of started it led to the feeling of uneasiness there is that they
Yeah.
did an ultrasound and they wouldn't let me see. Um, I
Oh,
remember I asked, can I see? I kind of looked and peeked and they like moved the monitor away. And I asked them if I can see, and they said, no, we don't allow you to see. And so
wow.
that kind of, I felt a little bit uneasy about that. And then when they put it in my hand, I was already started having those feelings. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely started from at my appointment there, and just everything together, I think kind of led me to start having doubts.
Yeah. Yeah. And so um, I've heard from other people that sometimes the abortion clinics will not let the man be in there with them. What was your experience, Jael? Did you
Yeah.
go in with her, or
No,
how did that all go?
I was at first. I was just in the waiting room,
Okay.
and um, yeah, they did not allow me to be there with her. I was accompanying with her. I wanted to be, as supportive as I could be, um, and they totally forbade me from going there with her. And then so I was
Wow.
waiting outside, and that's when Cynthia ran outside of the room and told me that we need to talk. So we went to the car, and that's when she was, not sure about having second thoughts. And then But then that's when she decided, oh no, it's too late. We already paid, and we'll go back in. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I was not allowed to be in there.
I'm interested to know from each of you, separately and jointly, if you were to think about the abortion pill reversal protocol and its place in your life, what impact did that whole process have on your spiritual life? Who wants to go first? I want to hear from each of you.
I can go first. It definitely changed everything. And I want to say that, I kind of talked about the moment where I started having doubts about the abortion itself. But even when I went to have my ultrasound with Dr. Delgado, I was still kind of not sure and just like, well, let me just go see. And maybe the baby isn't even alive, kind of just a lot of questions in my mind. But the minute that I saw the heartbeat on the, ultrasound screen, everything changed. I mean, I would say that that was like a very defining moment for my faith. Because there was no more doubts. Like, it was, I'm going to have this baby and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to see this through. And I mean, yeah, that definitely was a moment that just completely changed my outlook on life, on my faith, on everything. So, you know, since that moment, I've, given everything to God and given my family to him. And, just, I always know that he's going to be there for me because he was there for me since, since the very beginning, since all of this.
And you have a 15-year-old that you can't imagine your life without.
Yeah. I mean, everything is to God's plan. And he definitely was, meant to be in our family. He was meant to be my son. And I mean, I would make that decision a million times over again.
100%.
If you don't mind my asking, what impact does it have on him? Presumably he knows your story and the story of his conception. This is probably a family story that gets told many times. What's it like for him?
Well, he actually didn't know until recently.
Is that so?
Yeah, so it was a funny story. I was working on, writing the chapter for Dr. Delgado's book, and I actually left it open on my computer, and he saw it. And we had never spoken to him. I think we always did want to eventually, but we wanted to be very careful about how we went about it because we didn't want him to feel like I wasn't wanted or, and he he read it. He was upstairs and he looked at it, and I remember he came downstairs and he told me, I saw what was on the screen, or what you had, what you were writing. And I kind of was like, okay. And I said, how do you feel about that? And he literally, the first thing he said to me was, I didn't know I was a miracle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. And isn't that how you want your child to feel? I mean, honestly, the reality is every child is a miracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's beautiful. That's really beautiful that he felt that. That's so cool. Jyale, let's hear from you.
Wait a sec.
Are you okay, man?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's just beautiful. That was always a concern of mine. How do we break it to him? I was very concerned about, just how he would take it. Didn't know when to tell him. Scared that, just imagining, at his age right now, teenager hormones, and I was scared for him to be like, well, I was never meant to be here, and like a fight like that, right? And I was always scared of that, and his response, it was such a blessing to hear that, and it's something that he's proud of, um, and I can I can be real with him. I can be honest with him, as a man who has made mistakes, who has had struggles. I can, if anything, I can relate with him even more so as he goes through his struggles as a kid, or socially or anything that he's encountering, I can just be, transparent with him and our relationship, as far as our communication, like we are just like best bros. You know, and he's so full of life. And for him to say that he's a miracle like that, it just like I get choked up because it's even more true than just how he says it. There was
Yeah.
clearly such a strong fight for him on both sides of that battlefield. And I really thank God for Dr. Delgado and for just being persistent, with love and with patience. We could have just hung up on him, and he could have been like, all right, well, we lost one, and let's keep moving forward. But he genuinely cared, and he always, even to this day, just shows us that he cares about us so much. And I'm just very thankful to God for that.
I think one of the parts of your bond with your son is your vulnerability, and as a man, so you're able to face your own imperfection, your own limitation, and it's not the end of the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you're relatable to him, but it's not like you're crying on his sleeve and telling all your sins or something like that, because a lot of times people think that's what it is, but that isn't what it is. It's like that. I find this very, very beautiful. Do you have anything you'd like to say to other men going through similar situations, Jyale?
Um, Man up. When the whole time until that moment where I really feel like God spoke to me, I was really hiding, and it's something that really bothers me about that. Like, maybe it's in my own pride or my own ego, but I was terrified. I was deathly terrified, and but when I had that conversation with God, where God told me that He would take care of my son, and I remember saying those exact words to Him. All right, but you're gonna help me like that, and I felt empowered as a man. I felt like that was maybe, I mean, yeah, I was young, but that was my first like man decision that I ever made, where it's like, hey, you can, you know, you got duty calls, and it's time to step up. And I'm very proud of myself for telling Cynthia that, hey, let's go get the ultrasound. And for whatever reason, Holy Spirit, I knew 100%, just like I know I'm talking to you right now, that there was going to be a heartbeat. And I always knew he was going to be a boy. Always knew that. I don't know why, but it just, I couldn't like even question it. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, as men, we all make mistakes, and we all are going to have, I guess, judgment lapses. But as a man, you got to continue just moving forward. And you're gonna live with regret, or you're gonna live with struggle in anything that you ever do. And at least you can just answer God's call by accepting His will. And just as a man, we don't have it all together, but God has it together for us. And as you just follow Him, by following Him, you can be a good leader. And by following Him, you don't need to worry about having the right judgment, because He will guide you, and He will be there for you no matter what.
Jael, one of the most striking things you said there is that this was the first man thing that I really had to do as a 19-year-old. And I wonder in my heart if the culture of death has emasculated men, has made it more difficult for men to grow up into the fullness of manhood, because they're able to walk away from, they're able to avoid this type of call of duty, as you put it. I want to thank you very much for that testimony. I think that's very beautiful, and it's going to be helpful. I think it's going to help a lot of guys.
Yeah, I add one more thing on that is
Please.
I it was my mindset was, yeah, it's Cynthia's body, her choice. And I didn't want, as I said before, I didn't want to be involved in that decision. But, at the end of the day, like, he's my son too. And, he's my baby. And as men, you should stand up and you should be like, no, like, this is not your decision. Like, it's equally my decision too. Like, he's half of me.
Right.
And, as men,
Right.
you have to take accountability. Absolutely.
Right. As we're coming to the end of our time, I want to ask each of you, is there something else that I should ask you? Is there something else that you'd like to add? I feel like Jyale has set the pace for us here by giving us a really potent wrap-up statement. Cynthia, is there anything you'd like to add? Is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
No, I think just I would kind of echo what he said in that, he did leave that decision a lot to me. And I think if he would have been more vocal and more, just even kind of giving me like the other side to it, or maybe showing that like it was a possibility, I think I might have considered not going through with it. I know that he also had kind of the same mentality as I did, but I think that would have made a difference. And so I think that it is important for, men to also speak up and not just kind of try to hide away and leave that decision, because I think it could have an impact. And if you're having second thoughts, or, you have a girlfriend or somebody that you got pregnant that is, and you have a different opinion than her, like, not to be afraid to share that, and because it could be all the difference. So
Do you know our friends at Rachel's Vineyard, which Rachel's Vineyard is a ministry for people who have experienced abortion and are aware of regret and are aware of pain about it, and it's a healing ministry. They have guys at their workshops. They're finding a lot of men who have this kind of issue, that they wish they had spoken up, that they wish they had behaved differently, and so on. So, and also there's a new organization called Men for Life, and same thing. Calling on men to be more involved, being aware that it's a loss for the man as well. To say that it's the woman's body and therefore the man has nothing to do with it. That's not the whole story. So I very much appreciate the testimony that you two have brought to the table here. Nurse Debbie, do you have anything that you'd like to add? Anything I haven't asked that I should have asked?
I can't think of any question, but I do want to say this. I think that the medical abortion complex gets its fuel from the lack of virtue in our culture. And I think if the word birth control could better be said from a faith-filled aspect, self-control. If there was just more chastity, the medical abortion complex wouldn't have so much opportunity to make their money or to increase their ideology, because there would be the old-fashioned true virtue of men and women waiting until marriage, when the baby could be accepted into the family naturally, the way God has it planned, not with so much promiscuity and instant gratification and everything that feeds the fact that children are created out of wedlock and not wanted. And that was a bunch of words all put together, a word salad, but I hope that you got the message. What I'm trying to say is, please, let's all try our best to be models of virtue and pray for chastity.
Well, Debbie, the way we put it here at the Ruth Institute is that if you ask yourself this question, what do we owe children? What we owe children is their mother and father, a relationship with their mother and their father. And if you ask yourself, okay, how would we go about creating a situation where most kids got to be with both parents most of the time? What you'd end up with is traditional Christian sexual ethics. You would, if you just worked backwards, you would end up with, just only have sex with the person you're married to. That would solve a lot of problems, and that's what you're speaking about from a different angle. But I appreciate what you're saying, because I think it's very true. And the medical abortion complex tries to make us forget that children need their parents, right? Children need their parents. And the idea that we can just sweep that away somehow, they've invested a lot of money in making us all believe that connection is not real, and that we don't have to be responsible for it, and so I appreciate your perspective on that very important question. And I want to close with Dr. Delgado. Is there anything you'd like to add? And then I'm going to ask you how everybody can get in touch with you also.
Sure.
What closing thoughts do you have for us, Dr. George?
So my book, Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice, in part 3, I have a chapter called Would You Ban CPR, Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation? I make a comparison between CPR and APR, and I point out that CPR saves the physical life of one person, and its success rate is pretty low. We're happy if 15% of people survive CPR, and they're often neurologically impaired. On the other hand, APR has a very high success rate, 55 to 68%. The babies are born without birth defects. There's something else, because APR is really transformative, like Debbie said. And the physical life of the preborn baby is saved, but the mother who would have aborted her baby now becomes the savior of her baby. And so we've seen this transformation carry forth, and I think Cynthia and Jyale are perfect examples of it. And they both write separate chapters in our book with their separate perspectives, which I think is very interesting. And I was really happy that Jyale agreed to write, because I wanted to have a man's perspective. And we see there how, in their book, in their chapters, A Second Chance by Cynthia, where she says, where she writes about how her heart was transformed. The nurturing, loving heart of a mother now is nurturing her preborn baby. And Jyale, in his chapter called We Are Chosen, it really is a call for action to men. He talks about how I think you put it, you grew a backbone. And you really did. You see that transformation from boy to man, how he really stood up to defend not only his preborn baby, but to defend Cynthia. And he did whatever he had to defend them and to be a real leader, to be a real servant leader. And so I just see that they are such a great example of the transformation of APR and how their lives changed from really not having much traction as college students to now being on very godly paths, raising 3 beautiful children and really instilling those great Christian values in their family.
Well, thank you, George. That's a great testimony. And I, too, was very struck by the fact that they had separate chapters and that each one contributed something important to the whole story. You know, that to only look at the mother's view or only look at the father's view, that's not what we're going for. You know, that integrated, united picture is what is really helpful. Dr. Delgado, can you tell us, how can people help you and your ministry? How can people find you and more of your work?
Sure, they can find me at stenoinstitute.org, STENO institute.org, and there's a contact page there. There's also lots of articles, both peer-reviewed medical research as well as lay literature that everybody can understand, great videos, great links, as well as ways to contact me and my team.
And you also, are you still running the Culture of Life Family Services?
So I'm still the medical director of Culture of Life Family Services in San Diego County. We're growing. We just opened a La Mesa office. So we have 2 big offices now, one in North County, one in La Mesa, which is East San Diego. So we're very happy about the growth we have here and all the lives we get to touch locally.
And you can get the book, which is Abortion Pill Reversal, A Second Chance at Choice, from our friends at Ignatius Press. And it has a foreword by our friend Lila Rose. So thank you so much, all 4 of you, for being my guest on today's episode of The Dr. J Show.
Thank you.
Thank you.